Hi everyone, welcome to Raising Vibrations with myself, Simon. Today I'm going to be sharing with you guys a little bit of history regarding astrology and some insights and understandings about why at this point in time the idea of free your mind and slavery is such a big part of the liberation process that we are as human beings experiencing on the earth at this point in time, or at least through our spiritual development. So I'm going to be covering these aspects in some detail and giving you some information about how the past has kind of shaped our present and what it is that we're actually looking for inside of ourselves, and why so much information is about living your highest joy, following your heart, following synchronicities, connecting to spirituality, freeing your mind, etc., etc. So kind of like sharing some information and kind of putting it in a little bit into perspective. So in other words, I'm taking like the vision and kind of like shaping the scope so that we can see a little bit better into it, at least from my perspective and point of view, and how it is that I've understood this process within myself. So today, when it comes to the beginning of this story, I'd like to kind of like share with you guys some astrological events and some conditioning patterns that are associated with these astrological events. Okay. For almost 2,000 years, we've been living in what is being considered to be the Pisces age, okay? And a quick sort of like crash course in the Pisces archetype. The Pisces archetype is an energy pattern that is the end of a process. And when we look at something that has been completely full circle, we can see that it is completely open. And so the Pisces represents a totality of openness and sensitivity. But it is also something at the same time that we need to surrender to culminate in. So as a wave collects its energy and experiences its life and then goes into the ocean again, it is a culmination process. It's a surrendering process. When we die, we surrender our bodies to the earth. We thank Mother Earth for the experience of it, and we go back into spirit form. So Pisces will relate to that process and the openness and the connectivity and so on and so forth. And so through those things that I've just shared with you right now, as we've been going through the Piscean age, a large part of our state of awareness, a large part of our consciousness collectively has been, obviously our realities and our conditionings have been through this experience, through this Piscean type of architecture that I've just explained right now, surrender and the ability to connect to higher source and everything. And we because it's so sensitive, because it's so open, we feel like whenever we're experiencing a Pisces archetype within ourselves, whenever we're experiencing a Pisces experience, it is very sensitive to us, to the point where we can feel like we are being a victim to something. And all of us in our own lives are a part of this experience, because this conditioning patterns that have been given to us from our fathers and their forefathers and their forefathers, because they have been alive during this period of time for the last 2,000 years. This collective consciousness has built enough energy for us and for our reality to have this. So we naturally feel sometimes victimized by life, where we have to surrender to something, where the higher dimensions of metaphysics, in other words, the soul's path and the soul's plan, okay, for you as a divine being, is asking you to surrender into this process. But we can feel victimized by it. It's almost like a natural experience, because it sucks to have to surrender to something if we don't know why. And this is a really important reason in terms of the don't know why, because I feel it kind of like ties into this video a lot, and the reason why we don't feel like we don't understand it, which I'll explain a little bit later, and I'll give a reference. But we get to this point, we have to surrender to it. We hate surrendering to it, and so therefore we feel victimized by life. And it's a very difficult type of psychological pattern to get rid of, okay? Because it is surrendering to the ego, to the consciousness. It is surrender. It is allowing the ego to surrender, to be completely left out, which is the purpose of Pisces anyway, to surrender the ego, to surrender your life. So we get the surrender process, and it ties in with the last 2,000 years of the Piscean age and our collective consciousness being integrated with what I've just said right now. Then what happens is that we have this Virgo sub-age, okay? Now, Virgo is the energy that is completely polarized from Pisces. Pisces likes to dream and the metaphysical world. Virgo is reality, okay? And Virgo is the details. It's the form, in a sense, collectively with Capricorn and Taurus, that gives us that. But Virgo will give us the details, give us in the moment, be present, etc., etc., and for us to see what is real versus what is an illusion. And when we look at this archetype within our consciousness, this relationship between Pisces and Virgo, and that we have been living 2,000 years of the Pisces archetype, in other words, that's what has been collectively experiencing on Earth, and the sub-age, which is 1,000 years from the beginning. So 2,000 years ago, we have Pisces, it gets ushered in, the age of Jesus, etc., etc. And then we get halfway, so 1,000 years, and the Virgo axis starts to kick in, and we start to experience that reality as well. And what manifests out of this experience, and I'm not going to go into detail too much, but in the constellations, Sagittarius and Gemini, Virgo and Pisces all relate to the archetype of religion and this idea that spirit and matter are separate, okay? And this is the fundamental reason as to why this cardinal cross that was just actually happened right now was the realignment of this process, okay? The total realignment of this process. And the separation from spirit and matter began with this Pisces age that came into process, okay, with this Pisces age. And Pisces will relate to all that is the spiritual consciousness, okay, the transcendence, the totality of everything, the universe, God, if you want to call it, your highest joy, your happiness, ultimate love, holistic thinking. And Pisces and Virgo will talk about where are our imperfections so that we can grow from. So this Pisces axis of Virgo Pisces for 2,000 years, okay, and then obviously Virgo sub-age 1,000 years, and the relationship to spirit and matter being separate from each other, okay, we are looking at the religious archetypes of God is outside of ourselves, okay, because spirit and flesh are not now synced. God is outside of ourselves, and so therefore he is something that exists there, and our relationship to him is that he is perfect and we are imperfect. This is so damaging. This is so damaging in all possible existences that could ever exist in this place right now. The damage that has been experienced as a human race for such a long time of this sadomasochistic sort of archetype within consciousness where the overpowering surrendering of God, the Almighty, okay, outside of ourselves, and then our imperfection to it, has led us to live these 2,000 years where we are imperfect, so therefore our sins relative to God, okay, need to be sort of like cleansed. Okay, now Virgo is the cleansing archetype. It's allowing us to acknowledge where our ego is and to deflate it by acknowledging our imperfections. That's okay. That's simply saying, hey, by the way, I had an argument with you today. I did project some of my emotions onto you. I'm sorry for that, and I will do better next time. That's the correct way of Virgo. But it's the other way around, where whenever we interact with somebody, we project into them, okay, firstly, that our imperfections, okay, you're following what I'm saying over here. We project our imperfections onto there because ourselves are so damaged by this consciousness, okay, that we in a sense, because we are separate from our spirit and matter. They are separate. In other words, our bodies and our connection to that's severed, okay. We look outside of ourselves and go, right, we are this almighty God, we've done something wrong, therefore we must whip ourselves, therefore we must do this. You know, Catholicism and Judeo-Christianism and everything of the sort that exists in this archetype, this experience, is related to this Virgo archetype, this Virgo Pisces archetype, and surrendering to this. And I gave a good example of how we should understand Virgo Pisces, surrender our ego, and acknowledge our own faults, take responsibility for ourselves, versus blaming the other person and projecting the distortion in them and saying that they're the people that are wrong. Okay, this is where this thing has come from. We don't acknowledge our own our understandings because it's so painful to do that. Firstly, because when we acknowledge that spirit and matter are together, and we acknowledge reincarnation, and we acknowledge that consciousness over a period of time is distorted by this, then we acknowledge and we understand the truth that this understanding, this way of being is so out of line from our true nature completely that we can't even take responsibility for our own sort of like experiences in some way. right? Because it's in us to not look out within ourselves. It's to look outside of ourselves for the fault, for the problem. Okay, and all the religions will have this. Now, what I wanted to do here quickly with that picture is to acknowledge the fact that the paradigm shift, the quantum shift, that the Uranus in Aries, and the Pluto in Capricorn, and this cardinal cross, and all the stuff that you've been seeing, and the change in humanity, and not living the way that you want to, etc., and feeling this angst inside of yourself. This is it, because that spirit, which is your higher self, okay, your soul, consciousness, which is Neptune, which is everything, it's infinite, and matter are all together. They're all the same thing. We're all working together, and we create this happy reality because we're acknowledging and following our highest path. We're connecting to ourselves. We're acknowledging that God exists within. And the idea of God is not this atheist sort of distortion of thinking that it is this almighty being. That's a lot of nonsense. It's just the universe, and you are a creator of the universe. And so therefore you are experiencing what it's like to be a human on earth. And when you acknowledge your higher self being this soul that is just experiencing and using the body as a vehicle in which to experience creation, then you'll acknowledge that there is no such thing as this higher being that exists outside over there that's judging us. What a load of nonsense. It is that it is existing within us. And when we connect to our higher selves, when we connect spirit and matter, and we allow in our consciousness to live in our highest joy, and to acknowledge that everything that is around us that is patriarchal conditioning, which I'm going to get to right now, has distorted us in so many ways, it's unbelievable. And we're waking up to this. We're waking up to this nonsense. Okay, and it's so important to actually acknowledge this fact in a way that is intensely connected to you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Versus just, this is how it is. This is why we are feeling the way that we're feeling. So I'm going to go over to some slides that I've created over here to share with you a little bit of a story, because one of my own sort of journeys within my life is to take this intuitive understanding and put it into a video. But sometimes I might fail at actually being clear. So I'm going to try it this way. And for anybody that is not completely understanding what I'm saying, please write in the comments below. Or write to me an email, etc., so that I can clarify this even more. But I really hope that I've captured your sort of awareness when it comes to this. So, right, let's have a look. Okay. Firstly, the archetype of Pisces Virgo for the last 2,000 years has created this very thing. The big corporations, okay, that exist over there, the ones on the right-hand side with the sword and they're looking like the big fat men and everything, that's Pisces, the almighty God, the almighty powerfulness, I have to surrender to this, okay? And then the other side is Virgo, slavery, being of service to something so that I can acknowledge who I am. I acknowledge who I am and deflate the ego by being of service to somebody else through acknowledging I am not the only person in this reality, that there are other people out there and I can be of service. But we have patriarchal conditioning, okay, male-dominated energy has distorted the Virgo archetype to the point where it's created this massive distortion where for the last 2,000 years we have developed the slavery concept, the slavery behavior, where the people that are weaker, okay, are on the left-hand side, giving all their service and money and slavery concept to the ones that are more powerful. This is how that's why it exists. Pisces, the big fat people with the swords, just overpowering the weak people. Whereas Pisces is actually with the true nature of Pisces is to actually acknowledge the fact that we are all growing and learning at different rates. And so therefore we have compassion versus taking advantage of. So this is this type of shift from ego thinking to eco thinking. We're all connected in our own realms, that each one of us have got a different level of frequency that we vibrate on. And this frequency that we vibrate on is completely and utterly directly in line with where we are in terms of our own soul's progression. So when we look at Pisces completely, and this is where the balancing act comes in, this is where the restoration act comes in, this is where the eco thinking comes in, the organic thinking comes in, the freeing the mind comes in, is that instead of us feeling victimized by things, that we can actually take advantage of the awareness of something that it is that we don't like and take action, get it sorted out. Virgo, the polarity, okay? And we've got to stop feeling victimized completely. It's a really tough mentality to work through, and obviously a lot of my work as an astrologer is working with everybody that has this type of thing, because I've just liberated myself from this experience. So my soul had to actually go through the experience of what it's like to be liberated from it in order for me to actually speak this. So I know how this is working, this victimization period, this feeling of being overpowered by something. So that picture over there correlates to our history. Now, whether you believe in reincarnation or not, I can give it to you in two ways. Number one, that if you look at a timeline, say from the 1700s up until now, and it's going further back, of course, but let's just make it simple, 1700s up until now, okay? Just look at the nature of history and acknowledge the fact that this existence of slavery mentality, so the employer, I have power, I'm your authority, comes in and then says to this person, you shall work for me, you are my slave, you do my bidding. Firstly, what a load of nonsense, and whoever gives you the right to do that should be like just, you know, put into a box and taught the right ways of how natural ways to be is in place. So this authority thing comes in, you are now my slave, you do my bidding, etc., etc. And this collectively over a period of time, over say for 300 years, can you see how this mentality and consciousness has just kept with us? And it's so much easier to keep the mass amount of people on Earth just completely shut down and sleeping and not give them anything. Let's give them a television screen. Let's give them fluoride in their water. Let's give them this. Let's give them that. Just keep them quiet and let's make the money ourselves. Let's harvest them. This consciousness has been in existence for such a long period of time that no wonder everybody's waking up to the fact that, hang on, I don't actually like doing this job. Oh my God, I hate this. I'm a slave to it. Free your mind. That's why it's happening. Now, when you believe in reincarnation, or when you actually acknowledge the fact that reincarnation exists, and I've got a video that actually explains it very, very clearly, which I'll put in the description, go check it out, is that when we're looking at things like our souls experiencing reality, we come into this lifetime with the exact same type of consciousness, just superimposed onto us. So we're living a conditioned existence, and we're not actually awake to our higher selves because the very fact of this conditioning doesn't have the connection between spirit and matter associated. They're not together. And so therefore it's separate. So how would you even know that there would be such a thing as higher dimensions, metaphysics, spirituality? You would just be like, no, that's silly. That's not right. Why? Because it empowers you the moment that you start to acknowledge that. And if you're a slave and you're empowered, how the hell are you going to be a slave to the people? That's not okay. So therefore remove it. So the point I'm trying to make here is that this is where it all began. This is this Pisces Virgo axis archetype of surrender and being my slave. Okay? This gets created. Look at that timeline. Now check this out. Why does that picture exist in reality? Forced slavery didn't work. It gave poor results and a lower work rate. Economic slavery works like a charm. It gives great results and leaves the slaves also needing more. Okay? It's like the only difference between now and then is that the people that are actually the people that are controlling and putting in slavery, etc., etc., have just evolved. But look how you feel in your job when you're not following your highest joy, when you're not actually doing the thing that you want to do because of the slave mentality. And you're waking up to that. You're waking up to that and you're acknowledging that this is not okay. And everything around you will be a reflection of what it is that you are not. And that's an awesome thing to have, because when you switch off the idea that everything around you is a reflection of what it is that you're not, and that sucks, and you replace it with this information, I have an abundance of energy around me that's reflecting what it is that I'm not, and now I get the opportunity to change it. That's the space you've got to be in. That's the space you've got to be in. And if it takes you a long period of time to get out of it, whatever it is that you need to do to get out of that space, do it. Follow your highest joy. Your spirit is stronger. And this is the point of this video, to awaken us to this fact, to be inspired, to leave this place buzzing and just like moving forward, going, right, no longer am I going to be in this mentality. I'm going to break free. I'm going to allow my spirit to guide me and to acknowledge it. And to acknowledge the fact that the only reason why it seems silly in some cases is because that connection between spirit and matter has been severed for a specific reason, for exactly that, right? So free your mind. That exists in reality because it's the mind that has been enslaved through conditioning patterns that has stopped you from actually considering things outside of yourself. So occupy your mind. The revolution begins within. This is what Uranus in Aries is all about. This is what the Cardinal cross was all about. This is what this period of time is all about. And I can tell you right now that the more you start to acknowledge your higher self, the more you start to acknowledge that you are an infinite being of creation, experiencing life on earth as a human being, and you are here to experience and play with creation, play with the universe, not to just like simply exist and then pass. Okay, and to feel depressed and anxiety. These are mental processes that have locked us into this place. That is not what creation is about. It simply is not. And so this is the illusion. And this comes in from patriarchal conditioning. Patriarchal man made laws that are unnatural to our natural ways of being. And so when we are relating to things that are unnatural, we are finding ourselves, in every sense of the word, just completely and utterly restricted. We feel sad, we feel anxious, we feel depressed, because it's our souls breaking free, trying to say, hey, by the way, I'm actually here and I have this awesome plan that you set out before you came to be born. And you've got so many cool things to experience, but you need to break free from your mind. You need to stop your mind from putting all the blocks in place. So, going forward from this time, going forward in 2014, it's all about authority. It's all about acknowledging the fact that there is authority that has been, that your mind projects out into the world, that you give it authority to control your life. And it's about taking the authority back and acknowledging that you are the creator of your life. You have all the responsibility. You are the divine creation and experience. You are your own authority. You create your reality. You create your world. And it's now time to start stepping into the space of allowing the body, the spirit, and the soul to coexist, so that your heart, your emotions, your joy, your happiness, the pure divine love, and the flesh are existing at the exact same time. And you use all of those synchronicities to propel yourself forward. And so that you can actually manifest and experience the totality of creation as it is divinely for you. I hope that that sort of like, you know, led you in the right direction, because this picture is just fantastic. This is the male-dominated ego of war and so on and so forth. Like, anybody that associates themselves with the idea that war is fantastic and that's great in itself has got that poison within you. We have this frequency that we need to get rid of. So one of the ways that I do my work is acknowledging the fact that we need to start being more organic, being more natural, okay? And stepping away from anything that keeps you in slavery, keeps you in enslavement, like the TV in the terms of watching nonsense there and allowing that to be that. Moving away from materialism in terms of this makes me feel better, but along the lines of how you can actually use the physical reality to create communities, create a life, create an experience around you and enjoy it. Learn maths in the way that it was intended to learn, in terms of like looking at the dimensions and physics of life. Because it all started at the Roman time. It all started during this period where the divine feminine was completely cut out. All the men went to war with their spears and guns and fighting and blood and aggression. And, you know, that energy is supposed to be harnessed for the ability to take action. Not to go and like shove your face in another person's face and tell them that you are, you know, godcomplex.com. Like, that's arrogance. You want to use the Mars energy to go forward, to take the energy that I am experiencing in this video over here and allow it to manifest into your life, but not to not feel like you need to be at war with people. If somebody simply is strutting on your toes, you acknowledge the fact that they are in some way, shape or form doing this, and simply shift your consciousness away from it. Like, you know, and we're all gonna go through this experience. Another thing that I want to quickly put into creation over here, and this is the one of the big things that's going to heal us through this process, and this is an powerful message, is that when we look back at the Roman times and all of that type of stuff, and we look at the nature of how the feminine has been rejected and has been put into the idea that unless you are in some way, shape or form, like how do I put this across? Unless you are a servant to me as a slave sex servant, you know, the female to the male. Like, it happens in our day-to-day. Like just the porn industry in itself is so distorted, it's unbelievable. You know, like, we have really lost touch with the divine sexual act. That male dominance is there and females are just there to support and to serve. Like, the feminine energy within ourselves, the divine feminine energy in ourselves is to be able to create attraction, is to be able to allow us to connect to our sensitivities and to our feminine part of our consciousness. And the male is there to interact with that, to action and to be. But it cannot be dominated by just like allowing the Mars energy, the Roman energy just attack and destroy and remove everything that is sacred. They need to interact in a balanced way. And so many of us that live in this time right now need to free our minds, because we have so much inner criticism and judgment and imperfection that has been portrayed and spewed and projectiled onto us throughout our many lives, and our consciousness has been this, and we need to move away from this, because the idea of us being imperfect and the God being perfect is like, that's the very thing of the spirit and matter being separate. We got to stop it. We got to stop it completely. And the way that you can do that yourself is just acknowledging that that picture over there is spirit, matter, and consciousness interactive. That's who you divinely are. And when you acknowledge that fact, you will find harmony and love and joy and happiness in your life, and you will follow the synchronicities of life that will lead you on to what it is that you're next supposed to do. Because your divine soul, your experience, will put signposts in your way that will say, hey, by the way, this is an opportunity you've been looking to create. Like, say, for instance, as I've used this as an example in one of my other videos, is your highest joy is to be of service to humanity in a way where you create an organic food store. And you don't know how you're going to go about doing it. You just send out your intention of pure love and happiness and joy, and this is what you want. Your higher self and the universe will provide to you everything that you need to do in terms of the steps, by ways of giving you a billboard that will say something, and when you read it, you're like, yeah, that just feels right in my heart. Okay. And you investigate that. That's what you use. You use the Mars energy to investigate that process. And you're like a person with a magnifying glass, just following the clues, and until eventually you get to the point you're like, this is the reality that I wanted. You know, like, it's that simple. But again, our mentality, our consciousness stops us from doing that, because we see so much negativity around us. And the purpose of this video, again, is to realign spirit, matter, and know that it is part of us, and to live it, to acknowledge that space, to acknowledge your highest joy, and to not accept anything less than that. Because I promise you right now, as we go through this period of time, from 2011, Uranus has been accelerating that relationship to our spirit. And it's going faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. And the more you get on board with living your highest joy and living holistically and removing the idea of separation and allowing and surrendering the ego to your higher self, and just allowing your experiences to be the collection that lead you to what it is that's your highest joy. When you do that and you acknowledge that fact, okay, and you live in that space, then you will accelerate at the speed that you won't understand, because it will be just like, oh my God, I can't believe that I've been living anything other than this. And there'll be just joy and happiness around you completely. And this is for every single person. And I myself am doing these videos because I want to show everybody that it can be done. And that if you're on that path, then awesome, and just keep on doing it and spread the love and just be the change you want to see in the world. Okay, guys, thank you so much for allowing me to go on this energy spurt and rampage. I really, really hope that this was sort of like insightful. And again, if it's something that you know and it's just more of the same stuff, I hope there was just a pick-me-up and to really get you excited and moving forward and inspirational. And just like allowing us to be connected in the way that we should, and let go of patriarchal conditioning, completely break it up, and use this video as an example as to why that's the case for anybody that's curious about it. You know, that was one of the reasons as to why. Okay, guys, if you loved my content, if you enjoyed the stuff that I've done, please hit the like and subscribe button. And share it as much as you can. Write to me if you feel that you want to contact me, if this has inspired you. There's loads of people that are doing it. Thank you so much for your comments. I love every single piece of it, because it just shows me that I'm doing this, you know, not only for myself, but for you as well. And if you're interested in understanding how I work as an astrologer, and you want a reading, for instance, based on this, and this is how I work, I'm giving you an example of how I work, then come over to my website, simonforster.com. I'm doing a realignment session at this point in time with everybody that is interested in it. Just come over to my website, check it out, my prices and such, and yeah, take advantage of this. Okay, fantastic, guys. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic weekend, and until then, take care. Bye-bye.